All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Power BI interview. The way we are going to do this interview, I have divided it into two sections. One is going to be conceptual questions, and one is going to be case-based questions or scenario-based questions, right? I have listed all the questions on slide. What we will do, one by one, I will ask a certain person to answer a question. In case you are not able to answer the question, then I'll pass it on to the next candidate. Is it clear? Any questions you have before we start? All good. All right. So let's start. Anupama, the first question. If you can help me to understand what is the difference between a measure and a calculated field in Power BI?
Yes. So we use measure whenever we want to aggregate values of a particular column. And for the calculated column, we use it whenever we want to create a new column based on the columns or the data that we already have. So that is the difference between these two. One is measure will give us one value, but
Okay.
calculated column will give us another column. So that is the major difference between these two.
All right. Any other difference that you can think about?
Yes, so another is that calculated column, once it is calculated, so whenever we are creating it, it is calculated and it is static in nature, and it will always remain in our table. So that is why it will take a lot of space. But for measure, one good thing about it is that whenever we will use it, then only the calculation will happen and we will able to see the value. So it is the measure will not be stored in the memory. Only the
All
formula
right.
of the measure will be stored. So that is why we can save a lot of space.
So you're saying optimization is better with measures rather than calculated field. So
Yes.
if someone asks you, when should I go for a calculated column? Like that's an absolute thing that at this point I have to make a calculated field, even though I'm taking more memory space. What would that situation be?
Yes. So whenever we have very complex formula, then we can use the calculated column and we can have that result with us for the further calculation. So then we can create the calculated column. And another thing is that since calculated column works on row by row basis,
Mm-hmm.
so obviously whenever we need row by row information, then we
Mm-hmm.
have to use calculated column. We cannot use measure because it will do some kind of calculation and it will give only one value. So for both of them, the use is little bit different. That one is the aggregation and another is creating a whole set of columns to further use.
All right. But you have to understand what you said is correct in terms of memory. But when I'll definitely have to use a calculated column, not because it's complex. Complexities we can deal in measures also, right? We create a calculated column when we have to use it to plot it on axis, not as an aggregated value, right? For example, if I convert the cost into high, low, and medium costs, and I want to create a visual with this high, low, and medium, then I'll have to create a calculated column. Measures cannot help me over there, right? And it's not that if I want to see something on the row basis, then I'll do calculated column. In case of measures, it gets filtered. So if you drop it against any of the dimension, any of the field, it automatically gets filtered, right? So that is not the criteria. But yes, the first thing that you said, calculated column, it will run on row context. It creates a new column in my table, whereas measure gives me one single value. They are much lighter than calculated field because we are not increasing the size of the data. Those are the correct answers. All right. Okay. Aditya, what is the process of publishing Power BI report to Power BI services?
At first, we have to sign in to the Power BI
Right.
with company email.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have to publish. Then we have to publish it to the Power BI online.
Mm-hmm. So it goes where? What is that place
Uh,
called?
It is
Workspace.
place called Power BI online
Right.
workspace. Yeah,
Workspace, right? So does that mean that I have to
and
first
we have
work
to
on?
have to use it well to have we have called pro subscription to publish.
No, publish I can do without a pro. That should not be a problem. So why do we so two
Okay,
questions, Aditya, to you. So does that mean I have to work on a desktop
okay.
first to create a report and then only can I go to online, or can I create a report in online also?
Both the things we can do.
We will have to create on desktop. We first test it, it's working fine, and then we publish. That
Yeah.
goes in Power BI services
Then
in
have
a
to publish it.
workspace.
Yeah,
And anybody who is a
yeah,
part of that particular
yeah,
workspace will be able to view your report as well as the data set. Right? So first work is
yeah.
done on desktop.
Yes,
Once
ma'am.
everything is tested, everything is
Yeah,
done, then we publish it for sharing with other or collaborating with other team
yeah.
members. All right.
Collaborating with
Aishwarya,
other teammates. Yeah.
how do you handle missing data in Power BI?
Yeah, ma'am. So, to handle the missing data, what we do is after in Power Query, while seeing it, we can if the column is not important,
Mm-hmm.
in the case like um, some specification, some if it's unwanted column, we can delete it, ma'am. Or
Okay.
if it is an important one, or with that we will get some insight, then we can, if the data is numerical value, then we can
Mm-hmm.
use it, then we can use mean. And if it is a string or some word, we can replace it with the most frequent uh,
Mode. Whatever is the
mode.
mode value
Yes.
kind. Okay.
Yeah, mode value.
And in which part of Power BI are we working when we're doing this treatment?
Power Query mode.
Power Query. All right. Good. All right. Arpana, Aparna, Aparna,
Yes, ma'am.
how do you connect multiple data sources to Power BI? So when you open a Power BI report, it is going to ask you this type of connection you want to make, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you select one of the type of file and you get the data source in your Power BI.
Yes,
Now, what
ma'am.
if?
We have to connect the data source, like if it is a CSV file or any from the server, we can connect from there. We have to
Correct.
click on get data, and
Mhm.
then we have to choose which mode we have to select the file, and then we
Mhm.
have to, if you want to do any transform data, we can do the transform data, or else we have to upload the
Correct.
the
But that
data.
is with one source of data. So now if you want to add more sources of data, like the case studies that you've done in the sessions, where you had to add more sources of data, how is that done?
Online servers, ma'am.
No,
I didn't
other
have any
servers,
idea.
but which part of Power BI would you go and connect with other sources of data? Because when you start, go ahead.
Data only we can see there. I mean,
No. Who's going to answer this question? How do you connect multiple data sources?
Ma'am, can we go
Yeah.
to get data? And from get data, we can connect to multiple sources. If there are multiple, for example, multiple CSV files or Excel files that we want to load, we can put it in a folder. And from get data, we can get the folder and then select all the files, CSV files or Excel files that we have. And from there, we can load and transform or just load according to a choice. And we can, from get data also, we have different options of getting JSON files or PDF, or we can also connect to databases like SQL servers, MySQL, or
Can
online.
it be done somewhere else also? Or every time I have to come to Power BI main report screen and then click on get data? What about Power Query? Inside Power Query, you have new sources, right? That's how we
Yes,
did it.
yes. From
Once we've selected the data, we take it to transformation, we are cleaning, and to add more data, we can simply work in Power Query and get more data, correct? Whatever the
ma'am.
sources might be. Okay. All right. Archana,
Yes, ma'am.
what is the difference between a Power BI desktop and Power BI service? Kind of said the differences before. So what can I
In
do
Power
in desktop and what I cannot do in desktop versus Power BI service?
in Power BI desktops, we would be able to create dashboards, KPI cards, and all the visuals that we wanted.
Mhm.
Whereas in Power BI service,
Why
we
do
can
we use Power
upload.
BI? You can publish.
Yeah, we can publish the data and can look into it after we want.
Right. So basically, Power BI service is used for publishing and collaborating with others.
Yeah.
Power BI desktop is the place where you actually do the dirty work of cleaning the data, transforming the data, modeling of the data, all those things. The DAX work, everything is done on desktop, right?
Yes.
And then you publish in Power BI services so that other people who are in your team can also utilize that particular dashboard.
Okay.
All right. Next, Bhupen, explain what is row level security in Power BI and how would you implement it? What would be the scenario you would implement it?
Can you elaborate what is row level security?
Row level security, if you remember, we have something called roles in Power BI. So we assign roles.
Yes, sir.
So that is row level security, what we also call as RLS in short form.
No idea.
No idea. Who wants to answer this question?
Ma'am, may I?
Yes.
It is the row level security is we assign role to a particular if I want to share something to my colleagues or collaborate something, then row level security comes into picture. We have to filter the particular dashboards and the filtering based on the row level, and we can I. Um, An example would be like you say, a bike in USA. So we put a filter in country USA and category level bike. Then we have to secure row level security based on the role assignment. So if we share the file to someone other, they only would see the result bike segment and USA country. So it is a row level
Correct.
security based.
So what is a row level security? When you create a dashboard, you are using all the databases. Now, when you are assigning it to people in the Power BI services, when you publish, now depending who has what role should have different access to the information in your dashboard. So rather than creating multiple dashboard, putting across in multiple workspaces, what is the best way of doing it is to assign roles, and the roles can have multiple conditions based on it. Now, once you create a role, once you publish something in a Power BI service, then you assign roles to the corresponding email IDs of the team members that you have, and they will only be able to visualize the data that is pertaining to their role. Because row level security means putting a filter on the row level and hence restricting the data. Right? How would you implement it? We go to manage roles, we give the conditions over there, assign the role. Once we publish, then we assign the role over there to the people. So that is what a row level security means.
Yeah.
All right.
Got it.
Danish, got an easy one, Danish. What does one and asterisk mean in data models? While Danish takes care of the mic, Darshan, can you answer?
Yeah, ma'am. In the data models, the one represent one-to-one relationship between the tables, while asterisk represents one-to-many or many-to-one relationship between tables.
Does asterisk represent one-to-many relationship, or asterisk represents one side of the relationship?
Asterisk represent one-to-many.
Asterisk represents only many. Asterisk means many.
Many.
So
Sorry.
if I have a relationship where both are asterisks, then it's many-to-many relationship. But if
Okay.
on one side I have one and on the other side I have many, then it means one-to-many. So
Okay.
these symbols don't necessarily mean a relationship. They are just telling what's on that side, what type of relationship it's building. Is it building one, or is it having multiple values over there?
Yeah.
Right? So one would represent that the value in that table is unique. It's occurring only one time, and asterisk would represent that this is the many side of the relationship where the values are multiples.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Next is Ujjaini. Ujjaini, can you apply conditional formatting in Power BI?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell me how?
Well, there are two ways we can do conditional formatting. One we can do in Power Query, where we can go to the tab and in Power Queries we can do conditional formatting.
How?
In conditions, there will be a window to select. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the term, that the icon, what it's called, and we can give the if conditions and apply it.
In
Or
Power Query? What is the role of Power Query?
Power Query is for data transformation.
So what will conditional formatting do over there?
In conditional formatting,
What is the work of conditional formatting?
it is a form of filtering.
Not at all. It's not a form
Not
of filtering.
in the
No.
form, it groups the data. Conditional formatting would
Highlights the data.
highlight the data, groups the
It
data.
highlights the data. So where do you require this highlighting or categorizing through colors in the data?
In
Which
the report.
part? In the report part. Exactly. So where do you have conditional formatting? In reports.
In the reports, yes.
Right? And why do we need it?
To highlight our conditions. For example, ma'am, can I give an example?
No, tell me one thing. Which kind of visual would you apply a conditional formatting on?
I will apply it in a table or a matrix visual.
And why? Why on a table and a matrix specifically?
Specifically, in most time conditional formatting, we want to give it a color, a background color. So conditional, in that kind of visuals, we can give a background colors to highlight values.
But why only in tables? Why not use colors in all type of visuals? Why only tables?
Because in other like pie chart or bar graph, the values, we want to highlight the values. The values are either in such a position that we cannot highlight those values in such a way, or it will
Why
be.
not? Why can't I just highlight in a column chart? Can't I just highlight the column which has the highest value?
Yes, we can do that, but that
So
also
why
we can
tables?
do.
Why tables and matrix? Who wants to answer the question? Why in tables and matrix
Ma'am,
I
with
can,
conditional
ma'am.
formatting?
Because
ma'am,
tables
may
and
I?
matrix
No,
have
no, Aditya,
numerical
wait.
data.
Yes.
So to easily differentiate between them, we highlight it to
Absolutely. So
some maximum.
tables and matrix are again a form of data numbers, and data like in that format, in a table format, is always overwhelming for the business users to look at. So to make it easier and for a faster understanding of those tables, which we have to put, because not all the time all the things can be converted into beautiful charts. Not all the tables are built like that. So still I want to get some insight out of my table. So what do? We use conditional formatting to make it easier for us. All right. I think back to Anupama. What is interaction in Power BI, and can you explain the different type of interactions we have?
So interaction implies the interaction between different items on the report, like
Okay.
with our slicer, how we can basically how we can connect our slicer with other visuals. So
Connection, do you need to do a connection in Power BI of the visuals or the slices with the visuals?
so whenever we take a slicer, automatically it will be connected to all the visuals available on the report. Now, if we want particularly to not connect this particular slicer with some visuals, then we can go to interaction, go to format and edit interaction, and we can specify for which visuals we want the connection and for which we do not want.
And do we only do it between slicer and visuals, or it could be between multiple visuals also?
Yes, it could be between multiple visuals also, so that whenever user is clicking on one part of the visual, whether depending upon that the other visual will also change or not, we can modify that permission.
All right. So what are the types of interactions we have?
So I don't know exactly the name of the interactions.
Okay. Anybody remembers? There are 3 interactions.
Drill through, ma'am.
Maybe
Not
filter,
filter
highlight.
and highlight and none. Remember, by default, it's always set at highlight. And if you want to change, we have filter, we have highlight, and we have none when you don't want the visuals to interact with each other. All right. Aditya,
Yes.
how can I
Yes.
achieve a dynamic
Yes,
axis or
ma'am.
a dynamic measure in my visuals? Dynamic axis or a dynamic measure in the sense that, let's say if I have countries, I would like to look at the visuals based on categories, or if I have sales value, I would like to look at the measure based on profits or quantity. So how do I achieve this dynamic work on my visuals? I'll give you a hint. It starts with a P. It starts with an F.
Parameters.
Yes, field parameters.
Oh, parameters, ma'am. Yeah.
Field parameters. The parameters
Field
are also 2
parameters.
types,
Yeah.
field and numeric. So this is
Yeah.
achieved through
Field
field
numeric.
parameters.
Yeah.
Field parameters.
And
All right. All right. Aishwarya, what is the use of bookmarks and how is it different from the field parameters just that we just spoke about? Why do we use bookmarks?
Man, we use bookmark to specific, I mean, so I don't know how to put it in words. So,
Anyone else would like to tell what is the
like
use of a
this,
bookmark?
we'll create a panel and we will
So what is the meaning of bookmark?
we'll
Literal meaning of a bookmark. It's like you put a bookmark in a book, you open at a certain view.
yes, ma'am.
Right?
So we'll keep so when we select the panel, only that data will be shown. Remaining all will be hidden.
It's one of the case, but what is bookmarks doing? It's giving you a snapshot of a view at that point, right? Say
Yes,
I may have a bookmark which is giving me a snapshot of current year, and I may have another bookmark which says previous year. So when I click on current year, I get the everything related to current year. When I click on previous year, I'll get a snapshot. It may be same, it may be little different visuals in it, but of previous year. Right? Now, if you talk in terms of one single visual, Bookmark can also do this, that I can create a visual in which I can change from country to category to subcategory. In field parameters also I can do that. So what is the difference in terms of one single visual? What can Bookmark do and field parameters cannot, or vice versa? Anyone can answer this question.
Bookmarks occupies more space than the field parameters.
Okay.
In field parameters, we have options to select. It will be like a slicer, and we can select through it, and it will display once we click. Whereas in Bookmark, it is already present.
But again, field parameter, one thing will always be present. And Bookmark also, even though you don't call it slicer, but the navigator that gets created, it's very similar to a slicer.
Bookmark is more flexible than field parameter
In what sense?
in the sense that we can combine different visuals.
Type of
Uh,
visuals.
Yes, ma'am. For example, we
Correct.
can also give tables with charts in Bookmarks, but
Correct.
cannot do with field parameter.
Correct. So, like, sometimes we get this request that I want a chart, and if I want to look at the values, I should be able to convert it into a table. So that a Bookmark can do. Your field parameters cannot do that. Where the change in visual, the type of visual changes that Bookmarks can only handle. All right. Anupama, what is the difference between SUM and SUMX?
Yes. So in case of SUM,
Oh, Anupama,
it will-
sorry. Not Anupama. I think your name went down in the list. Aparna. Sorry about that. Aparna, what's the difference between SUM and SUMX?
Both are used in DAX to write DAX money, and
Yeah.
sum is a aggregate function, and it is used to calculate the column. I mean, we have to. It can give the addition of it.
Both are aggregation functions, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So what's the
Sum
difference?
we can use to. It is used to perform calculation for each row.
Each row. What do you mean by that?
I mean, it can take the numeric value of the each row in a column.
Not very clear. Not very clear. Who wants to answer this question?
Can I?
Yeah.
SUMX iterates
Can I?
an expression and goes through each row of the table and then outputs the result in
Correct.
the form of measure.
Absolutely. So, Aparna,
And
what you
sum is
missed is saying, you were saying correctly that it's working on row basis, but what it is doing on row basis, it's working on expression. And then it's giving you a summarization out. So this is a work of an iterator function, right? Which can work on row level and then do a summarization on the column that it has created. And whereas some function can only work with one single column. So it cannot deal with expressions. Can somebody give an example of SUMX?
SUMX, ma'am, will I say?
Go ahead.
If we have to, for example, find total sales, and we have two columns, say price per unit and then quantity per unit or sold per unit. So instead of using sum would give us total price or total sold. Instead of that, we will use the SUMX function, which is SUMX, and then we will give the table name and related and do that price unit into sold per unit. And in this way, we will get the total sales.
Absolutely correct. All right. Archana, what is the
Yes,
role
ma'am.
of this function called related?
Okay, when we are working with the different tables,
Mm-hmm.
related function is used to extract that data from that column, which is present in another table.
Okay. Can you relate it with any function of Excel that you think it's very close to related? One Excel function which does very similar work, brings data from one table to another table. Who remembers that?
It's VLOOKUP.
Lookup.
Yes. VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, right?
Yeah.
Very similar work as related does. All right. Who's next? Bhupin. All right. What is the role of the function all?
To discard the filtration as per the need.
Elaborate a little bit more.
For example, let's say we use some measures in a table, then it automatically gets filtered. But
Correct.
if we do not want it to be filtered and want to analyze the total result of, for example, grant total in each cell, then we can use all function so that it outputs all that value of measure which is stored in it to each of the column. It will not filter it corresponding to the.
Okay, correct. It removes the filter effect of the fields which are dropped in the visual. So can it be one single field, or it has to be whatever is dropped, it will negate it? It can have one single field also, right?
Yes,
If I have
one and multiple.
Yeah, it could be one, it could be multiple. All right. Danish's mic is not working. Darshan. Now we come to the favorite part. What is the difference in filtering data using calculate with and without a filter function? So filter function also does filtering. Calculate is also doing filtering. And we have seen that we can use calculate to filter, and sometimes we are using calculate and a filter function inside a calculate. What is the difference?
Can
First,
I
try
answer?
yes, please.
Yes, so in calculate function, when we write the filtered expression, it has to be in the form of true or false. But if we want any filter condition which involves any measure, we cannot write it down inside calculate. So in that case, we use a filter function, and inside that we write down the condition which involve a measure.
What else? But why
And
would I
also
put a filter inside a calculate?
Yes, so calculate gives us only one value answer, but filter will filter out and will give us a table or a column. And so first we use filter to filter out the the rows or the columns that we need, and then we apply calculate to summarize those values and get one value.
Okay. So what calculate does is calculate whatever the measure that we have kept in the very beginning. It is filtering the effect on that using the conditions that we are putting. It's only working on that value. So that value is attached to the entire table, but only thing is that value that it's going to return will have the filter or the conditions on based on that. Now, when you talk about filter function is reducing your data depending on what conditions you are putting. So if you think about, let's say I have product A, B, C, D, E. When I put anything in calculate and I filter and I drop, so I will get values again, everything against A, B, C, D, E. Because what it does, it just removes the, or puts the, rather not remove, but puts the condition, and based on that, that measure gets, the value gets changed because it's seeing the filtering effect of it. But if I would have put a filter, then it's not necessary A to E are falling in that filter. So if you drop a field of a calculate which has filter in it, you might see that it's giving a value for A and B and E, but C and D are not there. Why C and D are not there? Because it may be because of the filter, that effect that you've put. We have reduced the data where CD has got removed. Since it does not have the data of C and D, it cannot return a value on C and D. Make sense? So calculate is going to return value on all, because it is picking that value and just putting more filters on top of it and just reducing that value or recalculating that value rather. But when you put filter, what filter is doing? First reducing the table. So there may be certain values which are discarded because of your filters. And then when you're putting it against the entire field, some fields may not have value at all. So
And
that's the
because
main difference between
if
them.
we don't want them, then
If
we
you
can use
don't,
filter. If we don't
yeah,
want D and E values, then we can use filter.
then we can
Otherwise,
use
nothing.
filter. Correct. All right. Why do we create a date or a calendar table in Power BI? Why do we need a date or a calendar table?
To do date time functions for that for those kind of calculations, it's better to have a calendar table. So we can a calendar table, we can either directly use a function calendar and use our chosen dates to get a calendar start and like start date and end date, or for example, if we have an ordered date or something in our fact table or main table, and we can use the min of that date and max of the date also to generate a calendar, and from there we can extract day, week number, month, year, and end of the month, start of the month, and this will help us further in generating other DAX functions which are needed for example, if we want to find year to date sales or quarter to date sales or moving average, etc. So in that time it will be helpful.
It becomes useful because if you have one single table with all the continuous
Yes.
dates, the main important thing is, why do we create a calendar date table? Is because it has continuous set of dates for our calculations. Whereas depending on business to business, it may be that things are not getting recorded on a daily basis, or transactions are not happening on the daily basis. So when we do all these kind of calculations which are based on date, they will not get us very good results. Hence, we create a calendar or a date table where I have all the dates in a continuous format, and any column, like Jenny was saying, that I need to create on a date to help me do easy date and time calculation using the time intelligence function, it becomes much more smoother when we do it this way. So that's why we use it. I'm running out of time. Scenario-based questions, we'll do it in next session. Very quickly, if somebody can tell me what is the use of MTD, QTD, and YTD. Why do we do these kind of calculations in our reports? MTD is month till
cumulative
date.
functions. Yeah.
Cumulative functions, yes. And why do we need it? So MTD is doing cumulative of daily dates, whatever the parameter is. It could be profit, it could be sales, it could be quantity. QTD is doing quarter-wise accumulation. YTD is doing month-wise cumulative data. So why do we create these kind of reports for business?
Helps us to see if, for example, for profit, we can see if it's increasing or decreasing. We can see the trends. This helps us.
I'm not going to agree to that. You can't see a trend because it's a cumulative value you're looking at. If it was just a regular value, then I can see a trend.
To build KPIs.
To build KPIs, but I can create KPIs for everything. Why should I create MTD, QTD? So every business has targets, right? We are given monthly targets, quarterly targets, and yearly targets. So all these reports are built to see how close or far we are from the targets. So if I have something like a MTD, and I know at the end of the month, this is the revenue that I need to generate, and I can see it's 25th of the month and I'm very far away from the target, then probably we need to devise our marketing, we need to revise some processes so that it can help us to achieve that target. So this is kind of a understanding of close or far away we are from targets. Okay, so that's why we do these reports. Which functions are used for it?
Date,
This is easy
YTD, date,
question. Which
QTD,
function?
date, MTD.
Absolutely correct. Dates YTD, dates MTD, dates QTD is used for it. All right. So we'll end it over here. Probably we'll take it tomorrow or next week, and we will have scenario-based questions in which I'm going to tell you, okay, this is a scenario. This is what I want. Now, which DAX function are you going to use? So next part of your interview is going to be strictly based on your DAX knowledge. All right.